Yeah, that kind of goes. Hold on, let me turn this off here. All right. That kind of goes in line with what we were talking about earlier this week, right? Is you really don't know until you start doing test mailers, right? And of course, you want to make sure that you're working off a good assumption and your hypothesis actually has merit to it. But really, like, you just don't know until you get out there in the field. And so I think it's easy to get caught in the sidelines, especially when you're first starting out and you're looking for that perfect market, that perfect campaign. You only find perfection by mailing, and then you'll find a honey hole that really pays dividends. So yeah, good on you for getting those test mailers out. Before we dive into this one, we'll do a little round robin if everyone wants to kind of just pop in, see how their week's going here.
Yeah, I can start. Pretty slow on my front, honestly. The mailing from last month is starting to pay off. Got some more land trickling, or some more deals trickling in. Putting up 2 listings today.
One's a baller deal.
Which one? Oh yeah,
one.
I'm listing one in Florissant. It's a good deal. I'm buying it for 21, and it's gonna be listed at 55.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
That'll go in like 12 hours.
Yeah, it should sell really quick. Super, super hot market. I actually just like 30 minutes ago got another deal in my inbox. It's a buy for 33.
Yeah.
The cheapest lot out there is 125. So I think it should go at like 100, which would be a good deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry. This is in Teller County, right?
So the buy for 20 is in Teller County.
Okay, hold on. Is this in the Indian subdivision?
No. Christopher loves his Indian Mountain. This is in the Florissant Heights, which is like just north of
right next to it. Okay, what size property is this?
It's a 2-acre lot.
Dude, so we just locked up a 3-acre, I want to say 25K.
Dude. There's only 3 things listed out there. One is for 60 and the other one for 110,000. So
yeah, I think this one's worth about 80.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
It's in the Indian subdivision, dude. I've been trying to get land in Teller County for a long time. It's a hard place to get.
So I got that deal in Florissant. I have another one in Florissant, but like south. It's actually 2 adjacent lots. We just put that one under contract, so that's a pretty good deal. It's also in Teller County, and then one out in Midland, Colorado. But pretty slow on the sales as far as like leads or anything. So just putting as many under contract as I can.
What's your mailing so far for the month?
So last month we did 10,000. This month I think so far I'm about 5.
Are you shooting for another 10,000 a month?
Yeah, at least 9 is kind of what I had in my mind.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, Elder Bull, you want to take it away? How are things going with you?
Good. I just put 4 under contracts to buy. 3 just from, actually it was like a mailer that I sent out 8 months ago, probably. They just finished probate, randomly reached out to me. They said they had 4 lots in this area. 3 of them seemed like a pretty good deal. 2 were touching, which is like a fucking easy sale.
Yeah.
Because everyone loves 2 lots that are touching for some reason.
Yep.
Yeah. So those 3 will be fine. I think they'll sell pretty quick. They're just base hits. It's whatever.
Give us the numbers on those ones.
I'm buying each one for 12, so call it 13.5 after all escrow fees are done for each one, and then I will list them for 26. I'll probably hopefully sell them in a day. I sold another one over there. I sold that one for like 33. It's the exact same lot, so I figured a little bit cheaper. It will go in a couple hours.
Love it.
Yeah, and then I have another one in Park County on Indian Mountain, which I love. I love Indian Mountain. It's a pretty shitty one, doesn't have trees, so it's not worth much. That's the same thing, buy for 12, sell for 25, 28, somewhere in there.
I mean, those are bread and butter deals, though. You do 100 of those a year, you've got yourself a pretty healthy business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely not complaining. I like them. I especially like the 2 that are touching because those are going to go faster than anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have quite a few listed as well, at least for me. So they're just moving a little bit slowly. I don't think I've actually sold anything this month yet. I don't think so. So
what do you, if you guys had to estimate, and I think this is a KPI that once you guys start getting rolling in this business, It's one of the most important KPIs to track, and it's something that's not very tracked very often. And that's figuring out on a monthly basis, what are you adding to your pipeline? We typically look at that in terms of gross margin. So if we buy 10 deals and the spread on each deal is $20,000, we're saying we're adding $200,000 into our pipeline. And so this is a good metric just to track in general, because everything we do in this business, there's about a 90-day lag time typically. So you can kind of figure out, okay, I'm planting these seeds today, what's going to come to harvest in the future. But also, when times are getting a little bit slower and you're not having the quick dopamine hit of all these sales coming in, it's a nice North Star to kind of work off of to keep yourself inspired. Because some months are going to be phenomenal dispositions months where you're just selling everything like that. And some months are going to be bigger acquisitions months, and the dispositions will be a little more quiet. And so it's an important metric to track. So Chris, off the top of your head, I know you said you have a lot of things listed. Do you know roughly what your pipeline gross profit would be? So purchase price, title, that's
Yeah, I actually have it right here. So after all fees, it would be 220,000.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And how recently were those added? Like in the last 30 days or so?
So I have one that's just a pain in my ass. It's been on for 110 days. I've lowered this motherfucker. I'm the lowest one by like 25,000 in subdivision. It's a great lot. It's just like nothing is sold. So like the next one that will sell will be mine.
Yeah.
Mine's like aggressively low. Like literally nothing is sold the last 4 years as low as mine. So that I just like a thorn in my side. It's whatever. Yeah. It's totally fine. The spread is great. I don't care. The rest of them have been around. Two of them under 2 weeks, and the other couple about 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
I just kind of intentionally restructured things. I didn't send out a ton of mail for about 2 weeks to kind of slow it down. I wanted to get rid of some inventory, reset my cash so that I had more cash on hand. And so that's all done. And now, I'm fine with kind of where I am. And if it takes, 4 months to sell these things, I don't really care. It will go eventually.
Yep. They always do.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Okay, cool. Yeah, good on you for tracking the pipeline profit. And for the folks that are just getting started, as you're getting campaigns out the door, this is definitely a KPI that I recommend keeping tabs on. And you guys can use just the KPI template that we shared in the program. And you can just add that as a column in there. Just because it's on my screen, I'm kind of going in a list here. So Rylan, you're next, and we'll get to everyone else.
Yeah, so had to last 3 days. I put 6 properties under contract in the last 3 days. Right now I'm looking at my list. I'm at $150,000 in acquisitions across 12 properties, and that's going to yield roughly $350,000. So around a $200,000 profit.
That's awesome.
Next 3-4 months, probably.
Yep.
Made a couple sales last week, and then I sold a quarter of those properties I have under contract to buy right now. So just waiting on title on those.
Yep. Sweet. Well, what were the sales last week? Anything noteworthy or just some smaller stuff?
Just some smaller stuff, a couple base hits.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Cool. How are things going with you? I know you've got some campaigns going out.
Yeah, I got 2,000 mailers scheduled out. I had one go in, send out last week. One went out today. I got another for next week. And then I've got data for another 3,000 mailers, all different states. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm doing my best. And I'd rather talk to someone on the phone and have them scream at me, telling me I'm too low, or, call and just ask some questions because something was unclear than not have anyone call. So just working through it. I really do feel like a dummy trying to figure out these markets because, I don't know. Like going out east, it's like these pockets. And I'm sure when you say pockets, I'm like, oh, maybe it's like a couple hundred houses. Sometimes it's like someone just subdivides like 100 acres and there's only 10 there. It seems like if I have to do it, I will. But it seems like there's like all these subdivisions of like very small, vacation houses, say like in the mountains. In really nice areas, even in some of the stuff, I'm looking at Virginia, not far from DC, some areas that I've physically worked in. I thought it was the middle of nowhere when I was working there because they don't even have a Walmart, but land's still going for 20 grand an acre, 22,000.
Yeah. Anything by the DC metro area is going to be very, very, very expensive.
Yeah, just learn it as I go. I mean, I'll just
Yep.
keep sending mail out, and you know, at the very least, I want to get how much I spent on mail back just so I can learn, and then really start making some money, because I know if I just keep mailing and keep talking to people, eventually something's gonna turn. So imperfect actions. What I'm doing.
It's definitely, you want to continue the process of mailing and marketing, but you also, sorry, there's someone scooting their chair in the background. It's also really important to remember that, like, where are we getting value from this business? Why are we getting paid? And a lot of that comes down to market selection. And so by nature, it should be difficult. And if it wasn't difficult, well, there probably wouldn't be much value to extract there. So even if you're not going to be sending out campaigns to markets, just continuously going through and kind of honing that market selection skill and committing to, maybe it's an hour a day, maybe it's a couple hours per week, whatever you can fit in your schedule. So continue getting campaigns out. But in addition to that, I would continue just honing that skill of reviewing markets time and time and time again. And what you might find too is, like, while we talk about, in the case of these really small subdivisions, you might find that, hey, there's like 6 or 7 subdivisions within a 30-mile radius, and they're all priced roughly the same. And so you could just price all of them at once, opposed to have to go one by one. I would say typically the smallest campaign I've ever done, in terms of like pulling data for it, is like 50 records or so. Ironically, some of the most profitable deals I've ever had come from those micro campaigns. Could be because folks are skipping them and they don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Could be because your pricing is super accurate. Who really knows? But don't shy away from smaller campaigns. But I do think there is a case where, if the land is homogeneous or similar enough, you can just price it all in one swath. And as you get better at it too, pulling data and pricing something like this should, only take you 10 or 15 minutes for the smaller subdivisions. But I would continue just working that muscle, and just remember that it's hard for a reason, and that's why we get paid. Part of the reason we get paid.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Are you still slowing down for the next couple months, wintertime? What would you recommend to do? You said you were going to slow down, and just because the marketing, you spend $1,000, maybe you only get a return on, like, you said you get like half the returns in the wintertime.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because it's not so much that we make, but as a byproduct of getting less response, we make less money. The campaigns are still profitable, but more what we see is that there's just a downtick in terms of response rate. And by nature, we get less deals. But it's not like we're getting less quality in terms of the deals that reach out. It's just a smaller number. So for us, we're going to still hit our mail goal for October, which will be about 25,000 pieces this month. We'll dial it back starting in November. So November will probably be at half that. And then December, it's probably going to be half of 10,000. So probably be at about 5,000 for December. What I've noticed is December, towards the end of the month, things just really fall off. The trouble is, if you're mailing in the beginning of December, when is all that stuff hitting? Right at the end of the month, right? So probably most of the campaigns that we'll be doing in December will be back weighted towards the end of the month. And those will be hitting in January. And we would realistically, in terms of planning things out, I would like for things to be hitting like the second week of January. You have to assume that folks are going to be traveling, they're going to be away. And what happens is, when they're traveling and they're away, they come back home to a mountain of mail. It's really easy for your stuff to get lost in the shuffle. So usually we want stuff hitting like the second week of January. So we could be somewhere in the range of 5,000 to 10,000 for December. I wouldn't commit to just 5,000. It's not a hard rule for us. It's more about just the planning and the timing of it. So pretty unlikely that we would get 20,000 pieces out in 2 weeks at the end of December. And then same thing for November, is most of our campaigns will be going out at the beginning of the month with the hope that they're hitting at the end of November and early December. Once we get closer to the end of November, then we're not going to be sending really anything out. In our business, we do have other channels in terms of getting leads. Part of that is going through and working the folks that are in our CRM. So we'll have our team continue to call those people, continue to follow up. So there's still going to be deals coming in our pipeline. The other thing that we've been doing for about 6 or 7 months now is texting. So cold texting our lists. So we'll be working that as well. But at any given time, we have hundreds of people in our CRM that are warm. They're not hot, but they're warm. And so when we have downtime, I'll push my team to go work them. And as you build up a pipeline, and even if you're solo in this business, it's still worth going through and touching those leads, even if it's the holidays. We just don't want to overspend on direct mail.
Okay.
And
So,
I
like,
made
say-
that mistake. Yeah, go ahead.
You were just saying, so your normal's 25,000. The reason you're scaling down is because your team can only handle, say, you know, X amount of letters per week, the response on that. And there's a couple weeks that people aren't going to be looking at mail because Christmas, New Year's, stuff like that. So if my, say, big month is 5,000 and I can handle 5,000, you know, maybe take 2 weeks out of the month, I could be like at 3,000 for that month. And you would think that'd be a good plan as far as response, things like that.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it really comes down, like, one of the biggest variables for us. The reason that we're not going to go hit 25,000 next month, right, is, let's say I'm breaking that up into a week or two of mailing. I simply can't produce that many mailers in 2 weeks. I still give all of our mailers a blessing before they go out. 5,000 might be something that you could still hit. So you might not even need to reduce that number. It's more about the timing aspect. But as you're scaling up and doing larger campaigns, I can't do 25,000 mailers in a week. 25,000 mailers literally takes me 30 days. Like, it's like at the end of the month, we're hitting our goal because there's so much manpower that goes into that. And so by design, I just can't get that stuff into a shorter time frame. Now for you, you could still easily hit 5,000 in November. And I think I wouldn't shy away from it. In December, I would probably back off, though. I think the thing with the holiday in November with Thanksgiving is it's less of a double whammy in terms of what you're going to see with Christmas. So what happens is your mail goes out, let's say it touches down close to the holiday, you're not going to get much response, and then it'll pick back up once people are back in their house. The trouble with Christmas is they're gone for Christmas, they might be gone for New Year's. People are stuffing letters and sending them back and forth, and the Postal Service is known to lose things during the holidays. So I've just found that, like, it's, you know, probably 10 to 20% less effective during November, but it's drastically less effective during Christmas. So Christmas, I would dial it back if I were you. But since you're new and you're looking to build a pipeline, I would continue to hit your mail goal in November. Just be mindful of when it's going out, and you should be able to put together 5,000 mailers in a week if you had to.
Well, that's what I'll do.
Yeah. All right. Last but certainly not least, Preston, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. I got, still getting my first mailers out the door. I got 1,000 going out on Friday, and then a couple of thousand going out next week. Split up between 3 markets, so those will be my first 3,000 out the door. Still getting my systems tightened up, but yeah, excited to see what happens.
Sweet. Do you mind? You don't have to tell us exactly where you're mailing, but general geography: Southwest, Southeast.
So I got a couple kind of in the Blue Ridge Mountain areas, and then one in Texas. Yeah, so just kind of I'm more familiar with Texas being from there, so yeah, I have more of a local knowledge, I guess.
Sweet.
But, yeah.
And then in terms of property type, rural, recreational, infill lot stuff, a little bit of both.
Yeah, so yeah, rural recreational, mainly between like 3 to 20 acres. But I mean, I probably want to throw a couple mailers out for, rural infills sometime. Yeah. The rural infills have stayed really strong the last few years. And I think we'll continue to do so. Rural infill and rural recreational are kind of our bread and butter moving forward. I think infill stuff is kind of off the table for us currently. We have 2 infill lots. A similar situation with Chris. I think we are the lowest listed property in like the last 5 years, and we just can't get them to sell. I'm pretty gun shy with any of that stuff. But yeah, kudos on getting your mailers out. Do you have a rough mailing goal for October? So I think, I mean, I wanted to hit 3,000, so I think I'll hit that. And then next month I want to hit 5, and then December reassess, I guess, Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. I think for where you're at, hitting 5,000 would be a sweet target to have. That's kind of like that perfect when most folks are starting out, especially like in their first quarter or so. That's a really good number to hit, where it's like you're teetering on what's manageable, but you're going to get some quality deals in the door.
And then once you start kissing 10,000, I think that's when Pat Live starts to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So we'll crack into Q&A here. Just a quick update on me, what's going on in my business and in my life. For some of the folks that live in San Diego, they're going to be surprised. I'm actually moving to Nevada in January. Don't give me that look, Michael.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know. Well, I just got hit with the most egregious tax bill I've ever seen in my life. So I just can't support it anymore. So I've been to Nevada to get away from the state income tax. And yeah, I was going down.
Vegas?
Yeah, Las Vegas. Yeah.
He had so much fun for
Yeah, for your
bachelor party.
birthday.
He was like,
You know, just really such a Vegas guy as you guys can remember.
You're gonna blow all that tax money in the casino.
I actually, Michael and Chris can attest. I don't gamble. I literally.
it's like weird. It's like unfun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have such a detest. If I know that the game is built for me to lose, I just won't play it. I like games that I can win.
You can't win.
Thrill.
That's
That's the thrill.
That's the thrill. Yeah. So I'm actually going there in a week to go scope it out. And one of the things too that we'll be discussing next year, I think it's going to be a little more meaningful just as the group grows and as you guys grow, but bringing on a CPA to come talk tax strategy, something that I've spent a lot of time learning about in the last 12 months and talking to different CPAs and bookkeepers and tax strategists. And obviously we're in a business that's cash heavy. You get big lump sums of cash. There's nothing you can really depreciate against like other real estate assets. And so you can end up with a ginormous tax burden if you're not smart with your money. And so there's some interesting things that we can do to kind of help offset that. The first strategies are really going to be around just tax planning and organizing your company. So simple stuff like LLC and S Corp, and ensuring that you're paying yourself an adequate amount and then keeping the rest of the business and pulling expenses through the S Corp. There's some interesting stuff you can do in terms of like stacking management companies on top of the S Corp. And then the second strategy is actually going out there and spending money. And so that can be in the form of going and buying rental properties that depreciate against your active income. Or one of the things that I'm looking at for 2022, because the tax hit that I got was actually from last year. And one of the interesting strategies that we do is we always file an extension, because this is a business that we have to leverage capital. The more time I can have that money in my business doing deals, the more money I can make. And then so we always pay taxes in October. But one of the interesting strategies that we're looking at exercising for this year is, I think it's IRS code 179 or 173. It's the fact that you can depreciate 100% of the purchase price for any vehicle over 6,000 pounds, so long as you use it 50% of the time in your business. This is the last year to do it. So yeah, you might see me pulling up in a G-Wagon. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't get a G-Wagon. But you could quickly take 70 grand, 100 grand against right off your taxes immediately. And the crazy thing is, even if you finance the vehicle, put a down payment, make monthly payments on it, you still get to depreciate 100% of the purchase price. And then you can go leverage the capital in your business. So you can go put a down payment, the remaining balance that you have in cash, you could go invest it in your business, but take that full amount and depreciate against your taxes. So
one quick thing about that, just because I was looking into this, and the one, if anyone goes and does this like tomorrow, make sure you have to hold that vehicle for 5 years. Otherwise, you have to recapture the depreciation that you wrote off. So the IRS looks at all depreciated vehicles in a 5-year term.
Yep.
So you can write off 100% of the depreciation over 6,000 pounds, like you said, as long as you keep it for those 5 years. So if you turn around to sell it or get rid of it in 2 years, you have to recapture the depreciation that you wrote off. And then that would be an extra hit. That would fucking suck.
That was yeah. There's some interesting things that you kind of have to do in terms of boxes that need to be checked. That's one that I was unaware of. But one of the interesting ones, like because there are supply chain issues with vehicles right now, if you go and buy the car but don't receive the car and do one business trip in it before the end of the year, you don't get to depreciate 100% of the purchase price. You only get to depreciate 18 grand off of it. So there's like some things that you got to do to make sure that you are going to be able to capture all the benefits. But I think far and away, the best thing that we can do in this business, and the best thing that anyone can do when they have a lot of active income, like as you scale up in this business, your active income is going to shoot through the roof, is really just appreciating through rental properties. It's the most scalable strategy. That the government wants to incentivize us to create jobs. And so there's tax loopholes for those that create jobs, aka entrepreneurs. And the government does not want to provide housing. They want other people to do that. So they'll give you tax incentives for that as well. So you can appreciate the house on a 27-year term. The beautiful thing is, like, as you're developing the skill of sourcing off-market deals, you can apply that same exact framework to sourcing rental properties. So it's something that we'll be talking about in the coming months, when I think it's a little more meaningful for the group, and as I'm going through it myself as a guinea pig. So yeah, that's what's going on with me on a personal note. Business has been pretty good. We had a nice sale last week out in Park County. It was like a buy for 30, sell for 60. So. We've got a ton in our pipeline right now. Let's see. We have I would say currently we probably have in the neighborhood of like $400,000 gross profit in our pipeline in terms of properties that are listed, properties that are closing. But our sales have been relatively slow. This month we've had 5 sales. Let's see. Gross net profit cash has been about 27 grand this month. We've added $1,000 of new recurring revenue from owner finance sales. And we've done like, I don't know, 13 or 14 grand in terms of owner finance sales or owner finance income. So we'll probably end the month slightly beneath $100,000 or so in terms of gross profit, which is okay, but definitely a bit of a downtick from previous months. Mail, we're at 10,000 for the month, so we're about halfway through our goal. And yeah, that's pretty much it on our end. So let's crack into any questions that you guys have. We had 2 new folks join the program over the weekend. Looks like they're not on this call. I don't think they put any questions in the group chat. So you guys get all the attention.
I have actually a tax
Oh,
question.
here.
For sure, you can go, Michael.
Good.
Okay. So first, you don't have to answer this, but I'm going to ask just because I'm nosy as fuck. And it makes me feel better about my taxes. What was your tax bill for state income tax?
Yeah, so for state income tax, it was about $30,000, and then this is 2021, so $30,000 for California, about $80,000 for IRS, so about $110,000. The scary thing is my business has tripled since then. So yeah, I'm like,
okay.
I've got a burning hole in my pocket of needing to spend money before the end of the year or do something to offset anything that even looks like a 3x of that. So there were some things that I didn't have a ton of expenses last year. I was more focused on making money than figuring out how to keep the money, right? And that's something that I'm really spending more time thinking about. Like, once you start building up the machine, the land machine, the cash machine that spits out consistent profits, then then your job is to figure out, well, how do I preserve that wealth? Because really what we care about is how much do we keep in our pocket at the end of the year. No one cares about the top line revenue. In fact, no one even really cares about the profit. It's about how much do you keep. And that's a whole different game to be playing. And so I was really in the mode of, let me build up a business that spits out consistent revenue, and that's great. But I think this is the next kind of rung or next iteration.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. That makes me feel like way better about my taxes. I'm sorry for yours.
No, it's okay.
Hopefully.
But dude, that's the crazy thing is just by moving to Vegas and like our business next year, what our forecast is 2.4 million gross margin. That'll be 1.9 million net profit to the business. And that's just from the land business, right? Now we've also got the coaching business as well. So just by moving to Vegas, I mean, it could save me hundreds of thousands of dollars in just 1 year, which is nuts. And the cost of living is lower there. So at a certain point, relocating, like this is what I've been joking about with my friends. I'm like, either you don't make that much money and living in New York City or California, like it doesn't really matter, right? Because like, who really cares? Or you make a decent amount of money and it really matters. Or you're so rich that it just doesn't matter at all. You're just post-economic. Like if you got a couple $100 million, it doesn't matter. Like you can live wherever you want at that point. But if you're in that middle spot, it really matters. And so that is like a really simple tax strategy, is just moving somewhere else. As you start building up the time freedom and the income freedom too, you only have to be there for 183 days per year, quote unquote. I don't know how, some people might dance around that, but I would probably follow that guideline. But if you have the time freedom and you have the income freedom, then you can spend the other 6 months somewhere that you like.
Summer, have you
That's
looked at rather than just moving, like you could open an office in Nevada.
Yeah.
It's an expense which you need anyway. You just have one person that sits there and answers the phones for you. Then you're a registered Nevada company. You don't pay the California income tax anymore.
Yeah. So no, you're right. For the company, that's great. I think I would still personally be paying income tax in California. So yeah, I mean, there are other ways to go about it. That's why so many businesses are headquartered up in Delaware, right? They just go open their main office there because Delaware is like the wild, wild west. So you can pretty much get away with anything. So yeah, no, it's not a bad idea. I think for me, that sounds like a managerial headache. Like part of my vision for 2023 is to be semi-nomadic, 6 months travel, 6 months kind of home base. So having an office and someone to manage it just sounds like more of a managerial headache. But no, it's not a bad idea. And I think that's part of the appeal of moving somewhere where I could have an office space. The math on owning an office or renting or leasing an office space in San Diego, there's just no way it makes sense unless you're like a brick and mortar business. But for a normal lease, it's probably gonna be $5,000, like $7,500 a month. Hard to justify. In Vegas, you could have an office space at $2,000 a month, $1,500 even. So that's also something as well, because there is going to be a point in time where we do start bringing in people in person, because I think we have the ability to train them better than we could if they're overseas. You guys have kind of heard my shtick on overseas workers. I'm super bullish on them, but you do miss that high touch component that you can get with in-person workers.
Interesting. And then the actual tax question I had, that was just me prying, was I think you were talking on the way home from Vegas. We were talking about tax strategies, and you mentioned something that you tell your CPA, or your CPA had suggested to you're a land dealer or something like that in order to save. What was that about?
Mm-hmm. So we actually, for 2021, I didn't file as a land dealer. It was more advantageous for me to not take it as ordinary. Because if you're a land dealer, it gets classified as ordinary income, where if you're just like an investor, it's short-term capital gains.
Yeah.
According to her, she did the math on each one. I would have owed like an additional $30,000 if we went with the land dealer. But in 2020, the land dealer saved me a lot of money. I don't really know why there was a difference this year. But yeah, if you guys there's a couple of thresholds that you have to meet. Let me get them pulled up for you guys, and I can kind of rattle them off to you.
Okay.
Like anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, and just having that phrase is good, because that's something I can just ask my CPA as well and see if he can run the numbers both ways. But it wasn't even something I forgot to ask.
Yeah. So like most things with the IRS, there's a lot of gray area, right? It's not very binary, but this is like the rough outline from my understanding. Talk to your CPA. I'm not a lawyer. We have dealer status because the frequency of sales that we have, also the number of sales that we have, the length of ownership, and efforts to resell properties, as well as time devoted to sales. So the IRS is going to look at, do you have a team that's trying to sell these properties? Are you marketing these properties to resell them? How long are you holding them for? And then what are the frequency of the sales? Did you have one sale last year? You're probably not a dealer. Did you have 50? You're most likely a dealer. I don't think they give hard numbers to all of those, though. So that's where like the gray area comes in. But anyone in this group that's doing land full time, if you're doing more than like 10 deals a year, you're a land dealer. In my opinion. And you'd have you'd have so much to prove that.
Okay.
But you took short-term capital gains.
I did. Yeah. According to her, it saved me like tens of thousands. And then
you pay yourself on a regular basis? Yeah, last year was a little bit fuzzy because I did deals in an S corp and I did deals outside of an S corp. But yes. Yeah.
So I had a little bit of both, but yeah, I had a salary last year as well.
What percentage of your net or your gross did you pay yourself?
Yeah,
Was there any suggestion there as well, or no?
Yeah, every CPA is going to have a suggestion in terms of what you should be paying yourself. It's finding that sweet spot of like, you don't want to overpay yourself.
Yeah.
But you can't skate the system and try to pay yourself hardly anything. So it's like just a normal salary for wherever you live, right? Like I think I was at 50,000 is what I paid myself last year in terms of salary, but you can take distributions.
Yeah.
So if I look at it, I think I was at 50 or 60, somewhere in that range. I don't do it off of a percentage, but at the end of the year, you can kind of regroup and say, well, this is what we have in remaining profit. Do I want to take a distribution? And the deeper that I just learned about S Corps last year, but the further I've gone into tax strategy, the more that I realize that any single person that's doing this full time and is making over $50,000 a year, you should be set up as an S Corp. There's just no reason why you shouldn't. So I would advise that to everyone in this group as you guys scale up.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So as far as title work for deeds, does it matter if you put your name on it or your S Corp, your LLC?
I would talk to a CPA. From what I understand,
you should put it under your S Corp.
Yeah, so definitely preferable. But from what I understand, is like, let's say you did some deals under your personal name and then you created an LLC towards the end of the year, you can still file under that LLC with your EIN. I'm pretty sure that they can get that figured out for you. But you don't want to have a S Corp or an LLC set up and be doing all the deals on your personal name still. And I think you would take some work to get it ironed out, but I think you could pull it under your S Corp. But you have to just assume. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to touch on that. My CPA, again, asked him, but he pretty much said the same thing. So I filed my S Corp halfway through the year, and then you kind of just file this separate piece of paper that asks to be considered an S Corp all the year because you're doing the same business. And then it's like an umbrella. So you're totally fine to do business under that. But they said do not buy and sell anything now that it's set up under your personal name. So continue always doing it under your S Corp. If you own something and it's sitting in your inventory under your personal name, that's fine. Get it out of your inventory, but no future purchases.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been told as well. So if it's not too late for you, like as we come up on the end of the year, ideally you want to be like, one of the easiest things that you can do to save on taxes is to have an accurate pulse on a monthly basis of the numbers in your business. That's why bookkeeping is super important. It's really important to have a read on your business, because that way you can make decisions before it's too late and you're trying to be reactive. But the good news is we still have a little more time before the end of the year. So Ryland, if you need to become an S Corp, like now's the time to do it. And you could save a significant amount by doing so. Same thing too, like we're looking at the end of the year, we're saying, hey, we're going to have a pot of money sitting. Why don't we spend $50,000 and prepay for all of our mailers next year? Why don't we try to make deals with the software providers we use to prepay in advance? And so there's some ways you can get that money off your books as well. That's like the least sophisticated tax strategy. But if you've exhausted everything, that's something that you can do as well.
Right, the S Corp versus just your personal name. We ran the numbers from what I paid in 2021, which I've only been doing land for a short period of time. And we kind of guessed what I was going to do this year and kind of what it would save me. It was half of the cost taxes were being your personal name versus S Corp. It was insane.
Yeah. It's a huge deal. I mean, last year for 2021, like I said, we had an S Corp, we had a sole proprietorship, and the difference between the two is mind-boggling. And that's really where I got raked over the coals, was the sole prop, not the S Corp.
Yeah.
So what do you guys recommend for getting this figured out? Do I file it myself or hire someone to do it?
It depends. You got to know yourself. I mean, for me, I'm like, I would always pay someone to do it, because I'm like a chimp with a computer when it comes to the stuff. I feel like I have two brain cells when it comes to putting the stuff together. So I typically would pay people. If you want to do it yourself, I would recommend using Zen Business. You can set up your LLC on there, and then you just have to personally file. It's like a 255 or something form. I forget exactly what it is. And it's just a form that you file with the IRS to change your status to an S Corp. I would just pay for a CPA to do it, but
yeah, Michael and I hired someone. We happen to hire like the worst fucking lawyer on earth. I actually think he was disbarred. I'm not kidding. But he still got our shit done. So if you hire anyone that's at all better, then it's way easier. I would hire someone.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just moved out here. Will I be able to file in North Carolina then?
You for taxes?
Yeah, for this year.
No, you
No.
won't. To my understanding, no. You talk to your CPA, but I think you would have had to be there for at least 183 days.
Okay.
Yeah. Which almost, but next year. Hey, that's the silver lining.
Sumner, I want
When
to
did you move here?
Oh, what's up?
Like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, you just moved to I thought you meant you moved out.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, you've been. Oh, I understand.
But now it's like, what do I do? Because do I file an LLC in California and then terminate it?
I really wish we had someone on here that had some more authority on the subject. And if you guys want to, I could source someone to bring on these calls that could speak to this. To my understanding, where your LLC is created does not really matter. More so where you're located is more important. But like, for example, if you are in California and you try to open up an LLC in Delaware to get tax benefits, that's not going to work.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Same is true if you're in North Carolina and you have a California LLC, you're under the California LLC formation guidelines and their business guidelines, but you're not going to get hit with California tax. But you will have to pay the California LLC fee, which is different than it's probably much more expensive than what it is in North Carolina. So there probably is some marginal benefit to changing it to North Carolina. I think it should be where you're located, but I don't think you're going to get hit with additional taxes. So it's not like something that's super duper urgent. If you're going to go through the S corp process, though, potentially, the thing that's important with an LLC is you want to start building up business history, right? So when you are at the point that you're going to get a line of credit or you're getting 0% business cards for your company, you've got history there. So if you're always opening up these new LLCs and they're not seasoned, that can kind of play against you. So that's just
Well, I've got a sole proprietorship in California.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works with switching it over. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to this stuff, I just would recommend paying someone that knows what they're doing. That would be my best advice here.
Yeah, because you're gonna get. I just dealt with a fucking nightmare of an escrow company that asked for every document known to man, and like half of them I was unaware of, and then I had to like reach out to the lawyer or former lawyer who set up our stuff. To ask like what the hell it was. And anyway, it's better just to have someone that does. It's not as simple as just like an operating agreement, bylaws. There were like 4 or 5 forms that I didn't even know that I needed that escrow wanted, and I had done like 60 transactions prior to this for buying and selling, and no one else needed these. So anyway, it's just better safe than sorry.
It is for sure. And this stuff, like, I've done so much research on it, and I just have never found an easy resource to reference. The only thing that I found that's made it easier is just paying people. Like, even if you go and use LegalZoom or Zen Business or whatever I recommended, there's still a lot of like, you're just kind of guessing. And you should be able to set it up for like, what would you pay, Chris? Like $1,000?
I think so. Michael, what was it?
Yeah, it was. Well, we paid him $1,000, and there's like miscellaneous fees to request certain documents, but it was about $1,000.
Yeah. So a real lawyer would be like $2,000 probably.
Cool. All right, guys. Any additional questions we got here?
Yeah, Sumner, I wanted to ask you about picking a market, right? Do you ever get in a situation where you're like, all right, I see this whole county pocket. There's a bunch of solds, and then you see kind of, let's say one's the valley, one's the mountain. You see a price difference. You see the stuff in the valley selling like crazy. Stuff in the mountains, maybe not so much. You get a mountain property under contract. Do you ever have stuff that you can't push? Like how do you go about that when you're drawing your polygon on the map and you're going to market to an area? When do you decide, hey, let's leave that area out? Maybe that's going to be hard to sell type stuff.
I mean, I typically am not going to do that on the front end. To me, I mean, especially once you start doing larger campaigns, your biggest bottleneck is limitations on data. So if it's like, that's why I don't put any filters on my data. The only filter I use is size, but I'll mail anyone. They could have bought it a month ago and I'll still mail them. Same thing. I mean, if the topography looks a little wacky, I know that, 1 out of 10,000 of those deals will have a huge spread and it'll pay for everything and more. So I'm not going to be super conservative. But that's why my advice is probably different than what would be good advice for you, right? Because you're starting with a budget, you're starting doing smaller campaigns. And so you really want to be a little more targeted, a little more of like a sniper approach. So if you see that, hey, there's just an area, and I would be more going off of demand. I wouldn't try to guess that, oh, this is going to be hard to sell because of topography. If there's sales there, then hey, people think it's worth it. But if you're looking in an area and the topography is funky and there's no activity, I would probably stray away. And so the demand is always going to be the guiding light. But what I wouldn't try to do is say like, oh, those are going to be hard to sell. If you're going on there, the days on market are low, there's multiple sales, the comps look good, let that be what you rely on instead of like a gut instinct.
Okay. And then even then, if something's a little screwy, I can always just have it in the marketing and figure it out later when it comes to when people call.
Yeah, it's again, like what we don't want to do is try to make predictions because we just don't know, right? The only time we know is once we get that test mailer out and then a bigger mailer out. And so I think it's really important to not try to play the role of like Nostradamus and figure it out beforehand. Just get it out there, then you can kind of take it from there. And again, in the grand scheme of things, the cost of data and cost of mail is so low. There's so much margin there between what we spend on marketing and what we get on the back end that you're allowed to kind of get creative and maybe push the envelope and try areas where you feel like, it's not going to work, but some of those areas have been the best to me. So when I try to figure it out on the front end before getting real results, it usually doesn't play in my favor.
Have any of you guys ever had a property where it just didn't sell or it took way too long and parcel funders was like, or any other funding people, they got the property? Or are they usually pretty good on the front end? Like, hey, we're not going to lock this one up because we know it's not going to sell at that price.
I would say they're a pretty good indication as how good of the deal it is. They're, especially right now, they're uber conservative on what they'll lend on. So if they see that if the spread isn't like really worth it for them, or they have any inclination it's going to sit for a long time, if there's a lot of for sale comps out there, they just won't lend on it. So yeah, not only are they, a good lender to use, but they're a good sounding board for the deal as well. I mean, you don't just want to like throw any deal at them and be like, hey, what do you think this is worth? But they'll give you a pretty good idea as to whether it's actually a good deal or not.
Sure. Yeah. Once you're serious in the process and you're like about to buy it, you're in negotiations with the seller, you get it locked up and then you hit them up. You call them.
Exactly. Yeah. Once you have the contract, but I would make sure on your end that it is a good deal. Like you should be 99.9% sure that this is a good deal before you send it off to them. You don't really want to waste their time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. You'll definitely peeve them if you're just kind of shotgunning out anything that you get and sending it to them. They are, as Michael said, they've always been conservative. They're even more conservative now.
It's crazy how conservative they are.
Yeah.
So.
And I think there's also a trust factor too. Like if you've done a substantial amount of deals with them, I think they're a little more open-minded to listening to some like the counterpoints that you might have. Whereas you're newer, they're going to really kind of keep firm rails on you in terms of making sure it's a home run or a triple, and not letting you do like base hit deals that could be sketchy. I've never had a deal run over any time limit with them. I've only had one deal ever run over. It wasn't even an agreed upon time limit. It was my first partner deal ever, like 2.5 years ago. And it ran like 9 months and I ended up just buying it from the guy. And then I sold it like a week later, which is really weird. And so, yeah, never had that happen. Obviously, they've got contingency plans where it works out in their favor if it runs over 12 months. So it's not something that you should feel this burden or guilt for. It'll play out in their favor. And so I think that's actually the best way to go about it, where you know what the kind of guidelines are. And that way you're not stressing about, oh my God, is this going to sell soon? Because you can make much better decisions when you know, like, hey, if this takes 6 months to sell, it's okay. Like they're cool with it. They could expect that. I did have 2 properties just sell with them that were way, way, way under what we had anticipated. But that was because the market that these properties are in just absolutely fell apart. For example, we had a property that we bought for 34 or something and sold it for like 90 a couple months ago. We had a 5-acre right next to it, pretty much same property, like identical. We bought this one for 41. We thought it was going to be the same kind of deal, and it looks like we're going to sell it for 50, which is insane. The market has just fallen apart out there. And then we had a property that we bought for 30 that we thought we were going to sell for 65, and we sold it for like 45. So I've had 2 deals go sour with them, and they were just recent. But I mean, it's no harm, no foul. They totally get it. They're very, very grateful that I was communicative and got the deal sold, and did my best to move them as quickly as possible. So if they know you're doing the right thing, they're never gonna be harping on you.
Yeah, so like you guys say, 50% of value. If you can see comps all day long, someone's going to sell for 60. You lock it up. You get under contract. You're going to buy it at 30. You say they're conservative. Are they pushing, like, just overall big picture? Are they like, hey, get it for 20, 25? Or are you usually most of the time pretty good at getting it at 50%?
Man, I really despise. If there's one thing I do not like in the land investing business, it's these percentage questions, because it's so contextual. It just depends on what market it's in. It depends on what things are selling for. It seems like everyone wants to know. We get these comments on YouTube like every other day, like, hey, what offer percent are you guys using? It's like, well, it really depends. So they're never going to look at it and say, hey, you know what, Cole, you didn't get this at 45%, which is our requirement. They're looking at a multitude of factors. How much is listed? How long is the stuff that's out there actually been listed for? How many have sold recently? So it's things like that. I think the biggest thing that they're concerned about right now, more than anything, is property sitting too long. So they're looking for turn time. You could give them a slam dunk deal that you're buying for 50, they can sell for 150. But if it's going to take them 9 months, they're worried. And why is that? Because it's opening them up to more risk, because we don't know what the next 9 months look like. But if you give them a deal that you're buying for 10, you could sell it for 20, and they could sell it in like 6 days, they'll probably be all over that. So I think, and I'm going off a hunch here, but that's what I understand. That's exactly how I would operate too, because time is our biggest risk right now, even if the deal has huge returns.
Okay.
So, so really, I think it's more market specific than anything.
Gotcha. Quick question on my end. For company website, how far along were you when you did that? Do you have one for sellers, for buyers? Do you include it on your mailers?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of folks in this business will split it up, sellers and buyers. We've kept it under one umbrella. There's pros and cons to that for certain. One, the pro is it builds a ton of authority for sellers. Like, oh my God, these guys have sold hundreds of properties. I think it works in our favor. The con is we did get one negative review on our Google reviews page from someone that was just like, how dare you send me this letter? I think most people in this industry, they separate the two. But for me, the way I look at it too is like, it's easier to build one big brand than it is to build 2 big brands. So we get a ton of SEO and link juice from our Land Pioneer website, just from all like the organic searching we get to it from sellers and buyers. But I think it pays, it works in our favor. Eventually, we'll probably spin out like a landing page that we'll link people to in the mailers, just so they can have like some copy that's a little more dedicated to them as sellers. Because right now, everything looks like it's just for buyers. So I think there's merit to sending them through a funnel.
Yeah.
And in terms of when you should do it, it's the age-old question. I mean, really, you should be, the only value you're going to get from it is once you're doing a handful of deals per month, both on the buy side and the sell side. And really the biggest value that you're going to get on the sell side is the social proof. And then on the buy side, for buyers coming to you, the biggest value you're going to get is the ability for them to buy without you being there. Because you can actually install like a real checkout cart function so they can reserve properties.
Yeah.
And right now, about 40% of our sales happen organically on our website. So it does really pay off. But if you're doing 2 sales a month, I don't think it's worthwhile. I know plenty of folks in this business that are doing $500,000 a year profit, or maybe even slightly more with no website. So it's not going to make or break it. I also think it depends on what's your vision for this business. Like, do you want to have a big web presence and kind of play the SEO game? Then probably better to start now and just kind of have that in the background. And if that's not something that's huge on your mind and you're just trying to get deals flowing and get capital flowing, I don't think it's something that I would dedicate time and resources to for a while.
It's funny. I mean, I would think people would search you, but I guess a lot of times sellers don't.
No, for us, they do. For us, we get a ton of searches. And that's what's kind of given us additional momentum, because Google's like, wow, this website gets a lot of searches. So that's why we've kept it under just one website. I think it has played in our favor. The crappy thing, though, is if you get someone that's really angry, then they're going to leave you a bad review. That's only happened once out of hundreds of thousands of mailers.
Something that I've found really helpful, and I have a different thing than Sumner, is I almost sell none of my properties through my website. And Michael, I do it differently. They sell a lot. I probably sold 2 through my website, maybe. But most of the reason why I use my website is either directing people, because I think Sumner touched upon it on a previous call. I'm not willing to do a whole bunch of legwork for a buyer. They're going to do it themselves if they're going to be like a really good lead. If they want information, absolutely, I'm happy to send them. I'll send them the link to my website. They can read up all about it, all that kind of stuff, and they can call me. I give them my number. If it gets to that point, then I know they're legit. And it's just a place for me to keep all the details about every property I have. And after a while, they start to blend together. You don't remember the size. The GPS coordinates are on there if people ask. So it's just a placeholder for all info about that specific property, and that's what I use mine for. So it actually isn't for traffic at all.
Do you throw your website link on the mailers?
I throw it on the mailers, but I do not put it into my email signature, because when I'm negotiating a price or whatever it is, I don't want anyone to go on my site and be like, "Yo, you just sold one. I can see on your site in the same subdivision for like twice what you're offering me." Like, I definitely don't want that.
We've had that happen before.
Yeah, but I do leave it on the mailer, because I feel like if you like Sumner said, it lends credibility there. I just don't want to give them extra opportunities to dig up on me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think there's probably more value when you're first starting out to have a website for sellers than there is for buyers.
Yeah.
And you could spin up the simplest landing page in a weekend. Because I think what can happen is that people do intend to reach out. They're like, cool, I'm going to go check out this Preston guy. They go to your website, they say, he looks legit, and they just forget to reach out. And so what you can do is convert at a higher percent, because while they're there, you should have them opt in, and you'll probably capture some people that you wouldn't otherwise capture. And that's something that we don't have on our website right now. So we are planning on building out a landing page for that.
Cool.
Yeah. Sweet, y'all. Anything else? I know we're kind of coming up on time here.
Have you ever used Fund and Grow?
For funding purchases or for buyers?
Unsecured credit.
Yeah, for us to acquire land, or for buyers? No, I've never used it. I know some buyers use it when they're purchasing property. But no, I've never used it. But I know it is used in the land space from time to time.
Rylan, have you had buyers use it?
No, I'm looking at doing it myself.
Oh, okay. I refer buyers there. I don't know if anybody ever has.
Yeah.
Before, but
yeah, it's definitely something you could look at. I think there's probably better ways to get capital, to be honest. One of the things that you could do is try to go and get 0% credit for your business. And there's ways you can convert that credit into cash. So that's something that you can look into doing as well. Or just private money is always going to be the best option, though. For the stage that you're.
They give you 0% for like 12 to 18 months.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's great.
And they'll give you up to $250,000 throughout that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you know what they lend off of, Rylan?
They use multiple different banks to get these credit cards for you, and you it goes through this one platform, and you literally just pay the title company from one platform, and it pulls from all those credit cards.
And are they lending off of your business or off your credit, or
off your personal credit, and it's somehow through your business? So it doesn't affect your personal credit, but they use your credit to get that funding.
So business credit's always untied to your personal credit. You might need to have business credit history though to do that.
Yeah, they said for me, they looked at my business and they said that I have to season it for 30 to 60 days before I can get my rounds of capital.
Right. Okay.
Are you going to use them, Rylan?
What's that?
Are you planning on using them?
I'm thinking about it. It's either that or find more JV partners, but
0% is crazy if that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm interested.
I'll send you guys the video on it. I was watching it, and then I was calling one of the representatives yesterday, and he had me pretty sold on it. So
Who had the video?
Huh.
What's that?
What video were you watching?
Just like a video on their website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, 0% for 12 to 18 months, and you just need
Sounds
to get
super
it back.
sketchy. I'm in.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, they're a big company though. They're a reputable.
No. I know.
Yeah. No, there's plenty of people that do it. It's just I would only do it if I'm going to close on that deal in 1 to 2 months. If it's
Yeah, it doesn't make
it's
sense to be on.
any bit of risk, that's when it gets sketchy because that rate can jump to like 24% if you don't sell it in a year or something.
I'm paying 20% of my hard money anyway. I mean, fuck. Wow. All right. Fun
Yeah,
bro.
so sounds interesting. Definitely report back if you do pull the trigger on it.
Sounds good.
Oh my god, phone just jumped out of my hands. Well, cool guys. I think that pretty much does it for today. I'm gonna have some interesting stuff to share, just in terms of learnings and musings from this weekend. So we'll discuss some of that next week. And then if you guys are interested in doing some tax planning, tax strategy stuff, let me know. I could put together. Okay, Chris is in. I can put together a event for that. I've got a land specialized CPA and bookkeeper that we could bring onto the call if you guys are interested. Would that be something that's up your alley? Give me a yay
That
or
would
nay.
be fucking awesome.
Alright.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. We will make that happen. It'll probably be in November, but I will reach out and see if we can get something on the books.
Awesome. Thanks,
Awesome,
man.
guys. All right, sounds good. Good seeing you guys.
Good, Joe.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Bye.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
See ya.
See you guys.